very pleased to welcome here to the program. He's a writer for Baseball Prospectus and Sports Illustrated as well. You can follow him on twitter.com/J_Jaffe. It is Jay Jaffe. Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing?
I am very well, very well. Thanks for taking the time. When was the last time you did a Canadian interview?
I do a few on Toronto every now and then on the Score over there. So it's not like this is my first Canadian hit.
All right, I'll feel less special now then.
First time I've done one in Montreal, to my knowledge, though.
All right, that counts. That counts for something. Now, obviously, you had an article this week talking about the 20 things to improve baseball. It was a fun look at what could help the game, and certainly there were a lot of points that people will absolutely agree with you. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you can go to SI.com, click on the MLB section, and you can see it there, or check out Jay's Twitter feed as well. And certainly of note for this market anyway were a couple of items that were Montreal-centric, if you will. Number 9 on your list talked about how you could put a team in San Juan, Puerto Rico, as well as Montreal to expand to 32 teams. And the other item, obviously, was putting Tim Raines in the Hall of Fame. A special shout-out to banning Jeffrey Loria as well from Major League Baseball at number 8, which people were very happy about as well. Has this article captivated some people? It seems like it's getting a lot of attention online.
Yeah, it has, and I'm really pleased with it. I think I'm actually a little surprised that it's had as much legs as it has, so to speak. It got. I heard that one of the big name writers actually read the list on the air in one of his radio shows, and a lot of people have chimed in to tell me they agree with just about everything except the DH one, or they'll tell me which ones they agree with, and it's like, hey, look, if I hit the mark for you on 17 or 18, I'll take that batting average. So I am really pleased with the reception it's gotten, and I'm proud. It makes it feel like it was worth the work that I put into it with all the research and stuff.
Now, Jay, you're in the New York area. Are you from there? Did you have any connection at all to the Expos growing up? Obviously, a lot of people in upstate New York, a little further away from you, Plattsburgh, Burlington, all that kind of stuff. These guys would come up regularly to see Expo games. Is there a reason you mentioned Montreal specifically as a market that should have a team again?
Well, no, actually, I didn't grow up in New York. I actually grew up in Salt Lake City, and we didn't have any home team, so to speak, except a AAA. But I was a fan of baseball from the time I was a kid, and really it was the early '80s Expo teams, especially like the '81 Expos and going against the Dodgers. I grew up a Dodger fan, but fond memories of Tim Raines, especially, and Andre Dawson and Gary Carter. That nucleus from the late '70s and early '80s that was really good, and then the '90s Expos as well. I've been in New York since 1995, so. I unfortunately never got to see the Expos play at Montreal. My one time up there, they were out of town, but I did tour Olympic Stadium. So,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Don't quite.
I'm sorry that you toured it. I mean,
well, it was interesting, if not exactly the most aesthetically pleasing building. But Raines is one of my favorite players. I do a lot of stuff about the Hall of Fame every year. For SI.com, before that for Baseball Prospectus, a lot of Hall of Fame advocacy for the right candidates, and Raines has been atop my list since even before he reached the ballot. It was like, this is a guy who stands out as very worthy and somebody who I think should be in, and I've advocated for him now for 7 years, I believe he's been on the ballot. So I have a certain fondness for the Expos based on that.
I've had a chance to speak with some baseball writers that do vote for the Hall of Fame, and a couple of them have still mentioned the fact that he was a user at one point in his career very early on. But to me, I'm just absolutely shocked that would somehow inhibit him from getting into the Hall, especially when he went to rehab and was clean essentially from '82 all the way until he retired. So about 20 years of clean play, model teammate, all that kind of stuff. It just shocks me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Raines' story with regards to the drug narrative is one that he's somebody who really managed to save himself by he made a mistake early on. He went to rehab. He didn't get arrested or anything like that. He went to rehab. He told the team he got out of it and went on to become, like you said, a model teammate. One of those guys who was brought into teams because of his influence on younger players, his positive influence, and I don't really think you can legitimately hold against him what happened when he was a 20-year-old kid in a city that was reputedly the most party-friendly city in the majors.
Talking to Jay Jaffe of SI, and that is definitely true. I was in Toronto last year covering the Nationals and Blue Jays, not because this market follows the Nationals, but just for other reasons, and chatting with a couple of coaches from those teams and asking about Montreal, and one of them said, yeah, we miss coming to Montreal. It was the Vegas of the MLB circuit. So, there's certainly a void from that perspective. But actually, it's quite interesting too, because the timing of your interview yesterday, a Toronto, or rather a Canadian network interviewed Bud Selig about Montreal, the market of Montreal specifically, mentioning that there was a Facebook group of 155,000 fans, and in the efforts to try and raise awareness. And his thoughts were essentially that they're not planning expansion anytime soon. But he didn't mention anything about relocation, which we kind of found interesting here in this market.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think certainly it's a while before MLB expands to 32 teams. Although that the significance of that number, it's easy divisibility by 2s and 4s and 8s and whatever, would seem to point to the prospect that it eventually gets there. I think there are a few markets where baseball is underappreciated and certainly running into obstacles with getting ballparks built. It would not be out of the realm of possibility to see a baseball team, a franchise, uproot itself and move to Montreal sometime in the next several years, if there were enough appeal on the other end to attract a team. I mean, there are some teams, and I specifically pointed out in the article, like the A's and the Tampa Bay Rays, who have not been able to get ballparks, and I don't advocate using public finances in order to do that just to woo a team, but I think it's an inevitability that someday there will probably be some kind of movement to bring baseball or to move those teams, and it wouldn't surprise me if Montreal were in the mix.
Another element in your article, you mentioned obviously Jeffrey Loria from an American's point of view, a guy who covers baseball. It would be interesting for me to hear your thoughts on what you see happening down in Miami and what you saw happening here in Montreal many years ago when he was involved here, because obviously to us up here, it didn't seem like it got as much play down there, but now that it's sort of happening in a different way, but still kind of somewhat destructive seemingly, your thoughts on what's happening there. To me, the big story that comes to mind was the fact that the Marlins are suing a season ticket holder because he doesn't want to pay because his view is now obstructed, and they're trying to get $25,000 out of him. It just seems like it's out of control down there.
Yeah, Loria he's a malignant tumor in the body of baseball. I mean, you look at the way that he got in, with regards to the Expos and the Marlins and all that, and you look at what he's done down in Florida, it's just a really negative, unappealing presence throughout his sordid history in the game, and I don't think there's anybody who has a nice thing to say about him, and in any real position of covering him. He's just not a force of good. By any stretch of the imagination, there's certainly some merit to what the baseball merit to the trades that were made in terms of the quality of the prospects. When they tore down that team first after the 2003 championship, and then again this past year. But that doesn't mean that it was justifiable from the standpoint of what the taxpayers thought they were getting, or any of that down there. I mean, those fans have been abused over and over again. There's a Securities and Exchange Commission investigation into the financing of the stadium. I think that just about says it all.
He is Jay Jaffe. You can see him on Twitter.com/J_Jaffe, Jaffe. You can also follow him on SI.com. Jay, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, a pleasure. Thanks a lot.